So, Nate, Darth Vykes asks, why did it go from interface names of ETH0 to strange names? How do we get those back to normal, or how do we change what the selections?
So, to be honest, I've got a vague recollection of why and how these are named. You may have a better description because I only dug into it once a long time ago when I was a frustrated sysadmin and installed, I think it was RHEL 6, maybe it was 7, and all of a sudden all my interfaces were weird. It has to do with how and where they're connected physically on the hardware bus now, doesn't it?
Y- yes, as well as data provided by the BIOS, and there's a couple of things. There's actually like two competing technologies that will affect this. The first one, and this is where I think you came in with RHEL 6, there was a technology called BIOS DevName. And the idea was that we would collect information from the BIOS of the machine from the manufacturer to then name our interfaces, because, the order in which the boot process walks along the bus may differ for different hardware. And
Yes.
all the manufacturers will have a sticker on the back that numbers or names the port on the back. And we wanted to make sure that the name in the OS matched the name on the sticker. And so we worked with the PC manufacturers using this BIOS dev name standard so that we could actually do that.
Yeah, if you've ever had ETH 0 and ETH 1 switch on you at boot time because UDEV loaded in a different order for some reason, you'll know the pain there.
Right. Or like just different manufacturing runs of the same chassis would be slightly different, and that
Yep.
would cause weirdnesses. And so BIOS dev name was the first thing. And that's where the like ENP0S8 came from. So EN says Ethernet, P something, it's port number, and S something says socket number. Maybe it's PCI card number and socket number, something like that. So those things mean something, and it is fed by BIOS. So sometimes they get weird numbers assigned to them. So I saw that Shantanu had also answered this question, and he mentioned that you can pass a couple of kernel command line arguments
Yep.
at time. So if you add these to your grub kernel arguments list, if you say BIOS def name equals 0, it says even though the BIOS names exist, ignore them for the Linux kernel. This other one, netif names, talks about the second technology, and it's called predictable device names. As the idea was that
Predictable.
we could predict what the device name was going to be and then like use it. However, like the data that we use, it does assign device names in a repeatable fashion, but the actual names it chooses are not predictable by humans. So it's a misnomer. It's predictable for the machine, but it's not predictable
Right.
for us. Netif names equals 0 is a command line parameter you can pass that will disable predictable device naming. And so the both together, you'll go back to like ETH0, ETH1. Now, there's also some other weirdnesses, like it's a VM. Does a VM have a BIOS? Does that BIOS
Right.
recognize CI cards and sockets and stuff? So it could be that your physical hardware is using BIOS dev name, and your virtual hardware also has it enabled. But because that data is not being passed by the BIOS, you end up with ETH0, ETH1, ETH2, and so forth.
Yes.
Um,
I've seen that in my own
so
VMs.
that's kind of where the device naming stuff comes from. And it started earlier in RHEL. Predictable device naming came out in RHEL 7. And so since RHEL 7 is now out of its normal 10-year life cycle, um, all active versions of RHEL use both BIOS dev name